What is a cheat code at your job that only employees would know?
Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started.
Story 1. I worked at the library. The librarian in charge of the teen center had a policy that every rank and file employee underneath her was empowered to waive up to 50 in fines without asking permission or giving a reason. This was mostly intended to help teenagers who had lost track of some Arthur book when they were 6 and now couldn't get what they needed for high school projects. But we were at liberty to use it for whoever we wished. So if they say no to waiving your fines at the circulation desk or any other desk, you may just get a yes in the teen center if you're nice. I changed some adult man's whole life by doing it for him once. He didn't even ask me to. He would always come in to get graphic novels from the teen section, but could only read them at the library because he owed 20 in late fees, and that was a lot of money to him. When he asked me if there was any way to get a comic sent over from another branch without placing a hold, which he couldn't do because of his fees, I just took his card and waived the fees. I saw his face change as I gave it back to him and told him what I'd done. Suddenly, he was able to read at home at whatever time he wanted. I think about him a lot. Answer. When I was around 9 through 12, I rented some music CDs from the local library. I was positive that I returned all of the cases with the correct CD in them, but they said one was missing. For some reason, we never received a notice and must not have checked anything out for a while, because I end up getting a letter saying I was being taken to court because it was some outrageous amount. Preteen me for sure thought I was going to jail. I think my mom ended up working something out where she was able to pay the cost of the CD. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. Link is in the description. I'll show the most interesting messages in my videos. Story 2. I worked in a customer service type position with a recorded telephone line. You should do what you think is best is code for, you should do that, but on a recorded line, I can't tell you to do that. Answer. A nice lady really helped me recently with an insurance quote. It took a long time, and I was only planning on confirming some complicated questions. Then I wanted to place the order online myself, but Shed helps so much. So I asked, would it be beneficial for you if I placed this order now instead? And she paused for so long and then said something like your quote, I'm just here to make sure you get the best service. I can't remember her exact words, but I heard everything I needed in that pause. So I followed through and purchased it over the phone. Story 3. Doctor's office here. If you are trying to get in for a sooner appointment, call the office in the morning on days you're available. When patients cancel their appointment on the night before or the same day, we usually have it open because it's such short notice. That's your best shot at getting an appointment really soon. It often works even for providers who have wait lists going out months in advance. Same thing for testing and imaging. Story 4. You know how 90% of the time, restarting a Windows computer fixes whatever issue you're having? Nearly all our employees will say they've restarted their computer before calling for help. We have a script we can run that shows, without them knowing, the last time they rebooted. It's almost always over a week or so. So the first thing we'll do is run another script to reboot their computer. We'll say we're running an update fix, but we aren't. We're just rebooting it. And nearly always that fixes their issue. They think we're wizards, but in reality, we just did what they claim to have done. Story 5. I used to work in IT support, and if you are good enough at it, computers and other technology will magically start working when you get close to it. People will try to recreate the problems they have been dealing with for hours and will be unable to do it. Answer. When I got my new work laptop, I couldn't get it to recognize my second screen. I fought with it for a while, checked the cables, drivers, try to reinstall. It would just not turn on at all. I asked the lady in IT to stop by my desk and look at it when she had time. And she got to my desk, I plugged it in, and it turned right on and worked perfectly. She just said, "It's scared of me," and walked away. Story 6. When booking a flight through our travel system, only the cheapest flight is marked as to green. If it's within a certain range of that flight, it's yellow. It requires an explanation on why you need the more expensive flight, and your higher-up needs to approve manually. All other flights are red and need to be approved by even higher-up management, and usually get declined because you should get the green or yellow flights. If you want to book one of these red flights because it's a better connection, better airline, more convenient time, without approval, you can just set the search parameters for the departure time to exactly what the preferred flight is departing at. The system then sees it as the cheapest flight for those parameters, and you can book without any further approval. Story 7. We have to clock in on our phones with GPS on. I found if I'm late, I can just change the system time setting on my phone and it'll register the clock in at that time. Then you can immediately change it back to automatic network time. And if you've gone back, you'll see the timesheet app be updated instantly. So if I'm 10 minutes late, I'll change the system time to 6 a.m., clock in, then put automatic time back on, and the app will say I've been clocked in for those 10 minutes. I haven't told any of my coworkers in fear of these jackasses messing it up for me. Story 8. If they'll let you use your own credit card, do it. I racked up $40K in bonus cash back by using my credit card for travel in a 2-year period. They changed the policy, and I was one of the only ones that was mad about it. Answer. I did this too, and a lot of the time my old boss had me expense lunch for our direct reports. One of the places was a sub place, and I would get like 15 subs from there. The place also has a punch card, and you would get 1 punch for a small, 2 for a medium, and 3 for large. Everyone always got a large, since it was on the company. I would get them free subs from that place for months. Story 9. Not a job cheat code, but a neighborhood cheat code. My parents used to have a lot of parties at their house. They only paid for 1 garbage can. After the party, there would be 2-3 full cans at the curb waiting for the garbage collector. All of the cans always were emptied. The neighbor across the street did the same, but when he had extra cans, they were never emptied. He would ask my dad if he got his extras emptied, and my dad would say, yeah, always. What he failed to tell the neighbor, who was also his friend, was that he always left a 6-pack or a bottle or 2 of wine behind the cans for the trash collectors. Whenever one of the trash collectors saw my dad, they would give him a little salute. Story 10. 6th floor has the poop bathroom. You can poop in peace since there's like 3 people that work on that floor. Editing to clarify that those 3 people are only in the office 1 day a week, and they have a bathroom closer to them on the north side of the building they always use. The far bathroom on the south side of the building is the poop bathroom, so they won't fall victim to the poop vapors. Answer. This reminded me of something from my last company. I always disliked going into a stall if there was someone next to it. Plus, I like to get a wet paper towel to clean the seat prior. Sometimes I'd find myself going up and down each floor to find an empty and clean bathroom. That was until I figured out the floor where it was mostly HR and mostly women. This meant that the men's room was the cleanest and least used in the building on that floor, and it became my go-to bathroom from that point forward. Story 11. If you are experiencing homelessness, do not tell an intake coordinator social worker that you had a roof over your head the night before. It can negate your access to services shelter. You didn't couch surf. You didn't stay with family. You slept in a park in your car, etc. Edit. Adding as an update for my second biggest piece of advice. If you're facing becoming unhoused, find any way to maintain a gym membership. You will have access to showers, charging your devices, and a third space. Planet Fitness could save your life. Answer. That sounds very much like the show up high to substances rehab rule. Medicaid pays for 28 days of inpatient substances treatment. However, Medicaid also pays for up to 3 days of inpatient stay for quote-unquote detoxification. So if someone shows up at a rehab under the influence, they can bill for up to 31 days. This led to certain social workers advising individuals that they needed to use before showing up at rehab, so they'd fail a substances test. Story 12. Self-storage. You get your monthly rent raised after a certain amount of time. After a long time, your rent can be a lot higher than a brand new tenant at the same unit size. Ask for a transfer, move your stuff, and now you're paying less rent per month. As long as you have the physical strength and the time to switch units, you'll save money. Story 13. Here's a double for you. As the IT guy, when employees needed a tech task done faster or wanted special treatment, they'd bring me a bottle of Mountain Dew or a Payday candy bar. I used my personal rewards account to earn points when ordering office equipment. With 200 employees and an owner who liked the latest and greatest tech for himself and company, I'd rack up a truly significant amount of points quickly. I quickly figured out the employees with kids and those less fortunate, so I'd often use points to buy employees home computers and simple computer parts. Edit. Wow, this blew up far more than I could have anticipated. Thank you, everyone, for your kind words and stories. Answer. IT girl here can confirm the first point. We're people too. And while I'll never alter my quality of work, I will absolutely prioritize the users who are at least nice or responsive. You'd be shocked how often a user will put in a ticket, then be unreachable when we try to help, with extra points to those who happen to have sweets that find our way to us. I work for local government, so nothing like the second. But man, you're an actual saint for doing that for people. Well done. ED. Story 14. I worked for a large international company that would pay for meals on the road. Sometimes, when I was arriving home late at night, rather than stopping off a restaurant for dinner and wasting an hour, I would just buy a gift card for the restaurant with the corporate credit card and expense it as my meal. I used to ask for the cards in irregular amounts, i.e. 45.27, rather than round numbers to keep it seemingly legit. We were allowed to spend up to $65 for dinner, so it didn't raise flags. Then, I could enjoy a meal with my spouse at a later time. Answer. One company I work for stopped dealing with the receipts and all that nonsense. They just gave a per diem. They knew that people would always spend up to the amount, or close to, so it was silly to just have someone sit there and look over the receipt to save a nickel here or there. You got that amount per day. If you went over, that's on you. If you didn't spend it, you got to keep it. Story 15. As a journalist, here's a cheat code. When interviewing someone important, always ask your most important question twice. Once at the beginning when they're prepared, and once at the end when they're relaxed. The second answer is usually more honest and revealing. Also, if someone says no comment to a question, try rephrasing it as a statement instead of a question. People often feel compelled to correct you, giving you the information anyway. Story 16. I worked for a D2D cable and internet company. In some of their markets, their network isn't upgraded and cable signal isn't scrambled. So if you pay for internet from them, you can plug the coax cable into your TV and get channels $2.99 for free. The company was called Suddenlink Optimum Altice USA. Story 17. Maybe not just my job, but if you get emailed something by someone you know is busy and you feel the urgency they convey is not warranted, just bounce it back to them. Asking a simple question in the guise of clarifying something buys you anything from a few hours to a few days. Story 18. At BK, if you order a Whopper Heavy All, it comes with extra everything and looks more like the photo. Also, being an insider term, they sometimes think you are a secret shopper from corporate and make it extra good. Answer. What's the cheat code for receiving a chocolate Oreo shake when I order a chocolate Oreo shake? My last 3 have all been vanilla Oreo, despite me ordering chocolate. 3 different restaurants. I drive for work. Just tell me the cheat code for that. Unfortunately, when they hand it to me, I think it's chocolate because the crumbled Oreo cookie makes it look light brown. It's not until I go to taste it that I realize they handed me vanilla again. Story 19. The biscuits and gravy special is $6.99. But if you ring in biscuits and gravy a la carte is like $5.75. I only do it for people that are nice to me. Answer. Dollar General have 5 off $25 coupons, was 5 off 30 a few weeks, that you can use on Saturdays. Technically, you're only allowed to use it once per transaction. But if you're nice, I'll let you know you can split the $100 order into 4 $25 orders. All our employees saved a bunch of the coupons throughout the week to apply them to people for free because of how much we dislike the company. Story 20. Tape restoration. If VHS smells like vinegar, bake it 130 device fight for 8 hours. Saves unplayable tapes. Families think it's magic. Story 21. Balloon artist here. You can twist round balloons in half for garlands, semi-arches so you use way less balloons. Story 22. The printing company you're ordering from has a bunch of talented, bored artists ready and willing to design your crap for you. And it's usually cheaper than having a freelancer do it. I charge considerably more outside of work. Don't waste your time using AI to generate a design, because usually the print company's art department has to redraw it to make it print ready. And then you're basically spending the money on a design anyway, and sometimes more than usual, instead of having a professional make it right the first time. Even if you're not ordering something to be printed, a lot of companies will gladly just take an art-only order from you and pass it on to the art team to work on. Story 23. If you hire movers, ask if they offer cash discounts. You can easily get 10 to 15 off your bill by paying in cash. Story 24. I get to book hotels for some of our employees. As long as we use the company Amex card for points, we're good. But there's no policy about hotel rewards. Long story short, I've got a shoot ton of Hilton points for hotel stays that weren't my own. Answer: my company specifically allows that. They even encourage airline hotel rewards numbers to be added to your travel profile. All travel for business must be done through the company portal, so it's already going to that Amex. But points on the card all belong to them, even if, like me, you have another personal Amex. Then again, I'm in a career path in the company that basically never travels for business. Other paths have week-long mandatory trainings at our corporate university, but my career path doesn't go at all. So the only items I've ever expensed were team meals. Story 25. This is more an industry cheat code. Best time to buy a new TV is Super Bowl week. All MFGs are trying to move all their old flagship models during this time to make room for new ones, and you'll get close to Black Friday pricing on flagship models. Black Friday. Be wary about TV deals. Look at reviews. If there's a lot and they go back months, go for it. You most likely got a deal because it's most likely part of their current TV lineup. If there's no reviews or they are only very recent around BF, it was a BF model the MFG threw together, usually with subpar cheaper components just for Black Friday pricing. There's a higher chance you'll have issues down the road with that TV. I used to assist a TV buyer for a major U.S. electronics retailer. Answer: also, Black Friday time, and even at other times, always check the exact model number of whatever you are looking at. You might be looking at a flagship model of a known brand at a reasonable sounding price, but when you punch in the exact model number into Google and all you get are small Turkish appliance vendor web pages, you are not getting top-of-the-line components. The speakers could be worse, or the panel is B grade, or the case is inferior metal plastic. Could be a number of things. I suppose it could still be all right, but know what you might be getting into. One plus side, of course, is that you could be getting a non-smart device, which I consider only a blessing these days. Story 26. You don't need keys to get into and start an armored Humvee. If you can physically get into a military motor pool, they'd be super easy to steal. Then you have a free Humvee. Answer: Humvees used to be made assembled. Something at a plant in our town. They had a testing track with hills and everything. Apparently security was non-existent. My brother has many stories of he and his friends driving Humvees around the testing track. Up, down, steep grades, everything. They put them back in place after done. No one the wiser of the joyride. Story 27. Found a vending machine at work that had an odd cheat code. If you put in a $5 bill, then selected your choice of beverage, the vending machine would then give you 4 quarter, dispense your drink, and then return your $5 automatically. The entire time I work at that job, I kept a $5 bill in my wallet. Never mentioned it to my coworkers. Story 28. If it's raining or if there's lightning, we don't work outside. Upper management doesn't seem to grasp the concept that welders use high amperage electricity, and introducing water can eliminate people. Story 29. There's a nook behind one of the containers that's perfect for a mid-night shift nap. Also, the one bench where my boss office has no view on is perfect for that extra long sun break. I don't smoke, but I for sure like my sun, so I do take my smoke breaks. Yes, my work gets done, and I have my company phone on me. You need me, I'm there. But if the choice is the windowless office or outside on a bench, then outside it is. Also, if you're a temp and they give you the shoot working shoes, ask an employee to get some extra shoes for themselves in your size. Answer: I used to work in a warehouse and I used a pallet mover to create a little maze path through the stacks that only I was thin enough to squeeze through. It went straight for a few and then turned, and then concluded in an area where I had stacked a bunch of layers of cardboard and made a little nap nest for myself. There was no eye line to my sleeping nook, and I was working when I was supposed to, but I got that crucial, nobody can see or bother me during my break time you normally only get on the crapper. Story 30. The nurse and police camaraderie is totally a thing I use to my advantage. I have never had a ticket this way. Slap your badge on your chest. Say you got called into work and the officer sees RN and everything is forgiven. He'll let you get to work. So sorry, nurse. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your service, officer. Have a good rest of your shift. Story 31. Back in the day when I worked on staff, we had a team of runners who would constantly buy all the supplies for the business. Use the business phone number for discounts at the grocery store or CVS, or any place we would buy stuff from. Constant discounts cash back, but first come first serve to whoever cashed in the points. This was like a decade ago, but we used to get a free orange Julius at the grocery store with enough points. I still always use the company phone number at every store. So does 100 or more past employees. The points stack up so fast. If I'm still using the number after 15 years, I wonder how many others are using it too. Answer: my boss used to love Jersey Mike's, and we do that for 2, sometimes 3 meetings a week. I use the office phone number and load it up. In addition to free lunches at work a couple times a week, I was able to get that once every 2 weeks or so for my family. And another guy at work was able to do the same. Our boss moved to Hawaii to work remote though, so oh well. Story 32. My old industry. Yo, make friends with your professor. Do you know how many sample textbooks publishers send them? They also can literally just email them. And when I worked there, we didn't exactly look into why they are asking for another copy. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all in on a secret. Textbooks are expensive as hell, but the company doesn't make that much money because they spend a shoot-load on RD, printing, and marketing. Also, the authors, unless they are a super popular one, all have shoot contracts where they barely see any money, to the point where I've heard stories of them giving students the PDF. I worked in that industry as my job to get a job out of college, and it was one of the worst-run companies I've seen. Nicest people ever, and everyone genuinely cared about education and helping people. That didn't change the fact that they budgeted terribly. Answer: when I was in college, my one professor brought in his contract and showed that he made $3 off every book sold. Middle of the semester, he told everyone to bring the book in with them to class next time. He had everyone grab the book and get in line, and then gave everyone they had the book with them $3. He said he refused to make a profit off of something he felt were needed for our education. Story 33. Retail. It should go without saying, but you're way more likely to get what you want when you're friendly or at least respectful toward the person working. Answer: to add to this, if you're going to a large chain store that regularly offers coupons, you know the ones, never buy anything from there unless it's deeply discounted or you have a coupon. Never. Those stores price items over market value, so you think you're getting a deal when you bring in a coupon. I can't speak for all stores, but I worked at one of the sports variety, and we weren't allowed to use coupons with our employee discount. The employee discount was usually less than the coupons, and we had to pay for our uniform out of our paycheck. Do not recommend. The people were cool though. Managers, good cop, bad cop. Story 34. When asked if you have a time for another project, you don't. Your plate is full. Always act like you're super busy. That way you can coast on your current responsibilities and not take on more. We did this because no matter the promises, we never received promised bonuses or raises for extra work. Answer: a clean desk invites tons of new projects. Other employees will try to shift work onto you, and you'll always look like you are available as you have nothing to do. My wife is super efficient and was complaining about how she was always getting work from other people dumped on her because she was really good at her job. I told her to stop filing stuff when done. Let it pile up and build big stacks. It doesn't matter if it's compete or needs to be done. The perception is that you have a crap ton of stuff to do. She started to do that and let stuff really pile up, and everyone stopped giving her extra projects and left her alone. Story 35. Did a travel job. Needed a new car. Noticed they only log miles, not gas, for reimbursement. Got an electric car and the reimbursement paid the lease and insurance. Story 36. I used to let nice people at my GameStop store in the early 2000s basically use us as a free game rental service. There was a 7-day return policy on all used games. Play it for a week, return it for a different game. There was a very sweet grandma and her grandson that would come in every week to do this. She loved how happy gaming made her grandkid. It was super wholesome. Story 37. No one understands our industry except the people inside of it, but everyone thinks they do. So you can just make shoot up and to keep themselves from looking stupid. Customers will usually agree to whatever you say. Sounds unethical, but it's usually done to save the customer a world of headache and problems. Answer: I routinely have customers who are paying for a finished product, but insist on knowing every step of the process. Truth is, 95% of the time, we have no idea how we're going to do something. We just have decades of experience and enough creative thinkers that we get started and make it up on the fly. If a customer insists on knowing beforehand what we're doing, I have a whole list of imaginary equipment and techniques that I'll throw into the conversation, and that usually satisfies them. Story 38. I worked at a ridiculously popular coffee chain. Everyone knows the secret menu is made up, but the real cheat code is for the employees. When someone orders a brewed coffee and says, "Yeah, that's for here," we charge them for a small coffee, but we're supposed to give them a large mug. The system doesn't care. It's a legacy rule from when the mugs were all one size. They get a massive coffee for the price of a small, just by using 2 specific words. We'd only do it for people who were nice and said the phrase. The angry customers just got the small cup. Answer: not sure if it's the same after COVID, since many coffee shops stopped filling customer mugs and some never started doing it again. But I used to order a small coffee every day and hand them my travel mug, and they would almost always fill it full, which was probably 3 small coffees. They don't care because there is no work involved other than brewing the coffee in the first place, and they were giving me an extra 3 cents of bean water. Story 39. I used to work at Domino's. People who didn't want their receipt, I would get it and use the code to add up points. I'd show up to parties with boxes of pizza. Story 40. If you want to do your job correctly, forget everything a trainer tells you and ask for advice from a coworker who's been there the longest, an Amazon employee. Story 41. If you block the email header of X-Fishtest, you will no longer receive any phishing test emails. I have a rule set up that forwards it to the IT help desk immediately with the message of, "Is this spam?" and just pretend I am clueless. Story 42. We always referred to pooping at work as earning vacation, and it works for any job. Let's take 250 workdays per year. Sources will say 262, but consider sick and vacation days on average to take about 10 days per year. Plus, the math is easier. 250 days, 8 hours a day, is 2,000 hours working per year, or 120,000 minutes. Let's say that you poop each workday for about 10 minutes. 10 by 250 days is 2,500 minutes, or 41.7 hours per year. Just over 1 week of standard U.S. vacation. Please wash your hands. Story 43. We only follow the rules when an auditor shows up, because following the rules takes too much time. I think a lot of places could relate to that, though. Story 44. Eliminate them with kindness, even when they are being rude and mean. They will then look like a fool, and that is the greatest revenge with customers around. Story 45. Worked 3 12-hour nursing shifts per week with a partner RN on day shift. Required to work every other weekend. We had to match our schedule. Did a block schedule where every 3-5 weeks, we took off 7 days in a row without using PTO. Nurse manager didn't notice until she called day nurse, and her kid said she's in Vegas. We had been doing this block schedule for 2.5 years, and manager never noticed. ICU nurses had taught us the block schedule and pointed out manager is on, looking at daily staffing grid and not at individual staff schedule. Then HR got involved, but nothing changed since we were following all required policies. First, HR tried to say we had to use PTO if leaving town, but no policy, and we called labor board. As an aside, we pointed out to HR and manager that one RN had not worked a full weekend for over 1 year, and policy is must work every other weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Since we had printed copies of the schedule for the past 3 years, we could prove it. She did get scheduled for 3 weekends per month for the next year. Story 46. I'm a teacher now, but I worked for a long time in sales. If you want something, get it in specific language with zero room for interpretation. Our sales staff were trained to do our best, or things were subject to availability, but we can try to make that happen for you. For a couple of examples. A lot was assured but never promised. Our staff were trained to make it seem like the process would be seamless, easy, luxurious, and the poor lower-paid staff at the customer service center would pay the price when people called screaming, angry, because they had spent $1,000 and didn't get what was promised. Only customers who had things in writing in black and white terms were given what they purchased. It was really scummy, and I'm hyper-aware of sales language now when paying for things. I just purchased a car, and the finance guy finally asked if I had worked in sales because I kept cutting off his vague assurances. Get it in black and white, with specific language, and read over it with a fine-tooth comb. Story 47. I am the cheat code at my office. My boss has an Amazon account that I have access to. If you go to my boss and ask for something off Amazon, it's 100% guarantee she'll say no. But if you ask me, I put it in the cart and she orders it. I don't know what these girls will do when I'm gone. I just gave my 2 weeks notice. Story 48. When doing business travel, have a friend list their house on Airbnb and book their app. Have fun and have a great dinner with the hotel and per diem money. Story 49. Police officer. When dealing with someone who might not be all there mentally, play the game with them. 2 incidents come to mind. 1. Surprising number of people want to be locked up because people are following them and trying to read their thoughts. Jerry, you don't want to go to jail, my man. We've been locking those people up all day and night. That's where they all are. Are you sure you want to go down there? They inevitably change their mind. 2. Old lady calls insisting that there's someone in her attic. She lived in a condo complex where the units had shared attic space, so it was possible. But she was convinced it was a ghost. We went there all the time. One day, on the 3rd time, she said, I know it's that ghost that I've been seeing around here. Buddy of mine tells me to wait and investigate while he goes to get his ghost catcher. Comes back a few minutes later, having gone to Dollar General. We go in the attic with his newly purchased mason jar. He lights up a cigarette, inhales deep and blows the smoke into the jar and caps it shut. We go downstairs and he shows it to the lady and exclaims, "We got it. No more ghosts will be bothering you." We never heard from her again. Story 50. If someone asks you to make a document for something, anything in a corporate office environment, make it immediately as a placeholder. Let's say they want a documented procedure for how to purge the flux capacitor. It's a simple enough process that half a dozen people know how to do, but it's not written down anywhere. And technically, if everyone quit on the same day, it could be an issue. So management wants it documented. But it's a low priority task, not really worth your time. You'll get to it eventually. If I don't do this TPS report, the finance department is going to be furious. No, do it immediately. Make a document with the right template, the company logo as a watermark, the document management system ID number as a footer, date stamps, and the version control block above the contents list. Give it the right title, the right file name. Put the task as the first line of the document, and then write "Work in Progress." Label it as a draft and save it in the appropriate place. Maybe management won't come back to ask for it until next week, and you'll have time to complete it in between other tasks. Or maybe some middle manager is getting flack from upper management, and he decides to take it out on you for being slow. When they ask for it, say you're working on it and only have a draft copy. Tell them where to find it in the network drive or document management system. Odds are they won't even read it. The middle manager doesn't care what it says. He just needs to tell upper management there's a draft copy and it's a work in progress. Upper management don't care either. None of them are going to read it anyway. They probably won't even read the email about the draft document until tomorrow anyway. If someone does read it, well, it's a draft copy. It's not going to be complete. And when they ask to see it, that's a clue to start working on it ASAP. By the time they come back to say the draft copy is pathetic, it's just the title page. Oh, you have an old copy. There's a newer one that's basically finished. It's under technical review and sign off now. I'll send you the new copy. The alternative is to ignore the request. Promise yourself you'll do it later when things are less busy. Then when management asks you again, you need to say, "I didn't do it. I've been too busy." So you ignore instructions and have poor time management skills. How unfortunate. This will come up in your employee evaluation. Story 51. The new employee orientation people, monthly or once every 2 months, offer donuts for the week, and they never finish them. Those donuts are in the break room by 2:30 p.m. Story 52. If you sit beside the big fancy meeting rooms, there's a non-zero chance you might get some leftover snacks. Answer. Similarly, when I was a cocktail girl in a casino, the best place to be was in the vicinity of someone who hits the jackpot as they're winning it. You may not have even served that person a single drink all night, but they notice you first when they win, and they're quick to slip you 100 because they're excited. I remember one lady, sweet love. I was swing shift, so I showed up at 3 p.m. and was working till 11. She was drinking poinsettias, champagne and cranberry, and tipping me 2 quarters for every round. When she had to go to the restroom but still had money in her machine, she asked me if I'd watch it for her. So I sat at the slot machine and waited for her. An hour later, she came and found me and handed me 100. Said she hit the jackpot right after she got back from the restroom, and I gave her chair back to her. She was convinced I was lucky and made it happen for her. Ha ha. Story 53. I work in the mortgage industry. Not sure if all companies are like this, but at mine, each loan officer has a rate plan that is largely dependent on job title or experience. The higher their rate plan, the more we charge in fees to make up for the gap between the rate plan and amount we'll get upon selling your loan. So for example, working with an entry-level loan officer might get you a 6.875 interest rate if paying 1.25 in discount points. But working with their direct supervisor, Senior Vice President, might get you a rate of 6.875 while only paying 1 in discount points. Working with their boss, Executive Vice President, might get you that rate without paying any discount points. Also, you should carefully compare the fees on your initial loan estimate to the ones on your final closing disclosure. There are a lot of rules regarding fee increases, and there are many instances where the borrower is owed a massive refund, but the loan operations team does not apply one. Make sure to question any increases in your closing fees that aren't due to borrower-requested changes. Story 54. In a casino, if you play red and black on a roulette table, game after game, your percentage of getting your money back every hand is 94.47 if the wheel has 2 greens. If you do this enough times with high enough bets using your member card, you'll quickly accrue enough membership points to become the casino's top-tier member, double black, or diamond, or double diamond, or whatever it is. Once you get to top-tier membership, and it won't take you many spins depending on how much you're betting, everything becomes comp to you. Food, drinks, shows, accommodation, spa, everything. You can even get your friends comped. It's legal. It's within their membership rules. It's practically free unless a green comes up and you lose hands, and it's the only true way to beat a casino. And no, most casino staff are too stupid to realize what you've done because the roulette croupier and floor manager won't have a clue how membership works. Ask them, and I promise they'll stutter their way through an answer. And membership tier advancement is automated. To the system, you'll just look like a big bettor. Source: managed data analysis at a casino. Answer: when I was a croupier, cross-training in concierge was extremely common, and the membership system was broken down for us in painstaking detail. We were very much expected not to stutter when it came to product knowledge. Bets, which translated into tier points, were tracked manually at the table by the croupier. Time permitting, a busy table meant updating an average bet every now and then. A quiet one meant tracking every bet. Betting on red and black at the same time was the fastest way to get kicked out on suspicion of money laundering, and it was a condition of the gaming license of the individual employee to look for it and call it out. Story 55. Used to work for local government. One day, I was heading into work early and did a rolling stop at an intersection. Cop nabbed me. I didn't have my license with me, but I had my business card. Cop let me off since I work for the same government that the police do. I left government years ago, but still have a stack of business cards in my glove box that have come in handy several times. Answer: one time when I was moving, I had to slam on the brakes and the Monopoly game flew off the passenger seat and spilled on the floor. I grabbed the money and the cards from it and just tossed them into the glove compartment. When I got to the new place, I grabbed all that I saw from there and put it in the new house. A few months later, I got pulled over. I reached into the glove compartment and grabbed the registration and insurance information without looking and handed it to the cop. He laughed, asked me if I was trying to bribe him, and he showed me that there was several $100s in Monopoly money with advance to go and get out of jail cards in the paperwork. I didn't get a ticket. Story 56. I work at a university in the States. Cheat code for students. Show up, ask questions even if you think they're silly or for clarification. Stop by office hours. You will, on accident, more than you think, develop relationships that will help for grad school admissions jobs later and probably get the benefit of the doubt if your grade needs rounded. Answer: sometimes very little effort can already go a long way. In only our 4th week of our semester abroad, we had basically just arrived. A friend and I were asked by a professor to accompany him as part of his boat's crew to a prestigious professional organization's sailing regatta for free because the 2 of us were the only students who asked questions and interacted with him, as in tried to answer when he posed a question to the room in his 400-student lecture. Story 57. If you tell an old lady it's time to take her medication, she will count every pill, ask what each and every one is for, argue with you about it for 10 minutes, insist she doesn't take any medication, and that her son is a doctor who told her never to take pills or she would die. Then she will choose one pill at random to take and throw the rest on the floor. If you tell an old lady you need her to try a spoonful of this applesauce you made and tell you what it's missing, she won't even realize she just took 17 pills at once. Story 58. Corporate workers. Don't let anyone know how quickly you can do things. If they ask for something by going around the proper channels, do it really quick and then send the email at the end of the day or early the next. If everyone knew how quickly you can do things, they'd ask for quick little things all day and you'd never have time to focus. Story 59. Don't bother trying to stuff the whole bag of ashes through the opening of the urn. Occasionally it will be wide enough, but usually not. You're much better off just putting a new bag in there and pouring the ashes in. Story 60. Not my current job, but my old job. If you have a water leak and need someone to come turn the water off, you will get charged a service fee. If an anonymous person calls saying they noticed the leak, there isn't anyone to charge the service fee to. Story 61. When working with people with memory problems like dementia, you should never disagree with them. You agree and redirect. By disagreeing, you will cause undue stress, and they will not remember the correction. It just hurts them. Always affirm, then if necessary, redirect. Sometimes affirmations are easy to complete. Sometimes you just gotta redirect, but that's quite a skill you need to build. Edit. Basically lie. It's ethical lying, literally. Someone asks where their wife is, but you know she's dead. Oh, she's out running errands, but she said she'd be back at X. They will forget, but they will be satisfied in the moment, so it's win-win. Story 62. My sheep will follow me anywhere if I'm carrying a bucket. Doesn't even have to have anything in it. Story 63. I used to work in film and TV as a console programmer. It was a really active gig where I had to basically have control of the lighting rig at all times. So, I ran Wi-Fi network, common for console programmers, that let me use the bathroom or get snacks or coffee. So 500 away was a second stage, and that stage had the best poop bathroom. I did a ton of research, communicated with my boss in production a ton about connection the stages wirelessly, and got it accomplished. Got to control my network from the highest quality poop bathroom every day. Story 64. My shady as heck boss would charge people for a tire rotation and tell us not to do it since they won't notice anyway. If they came back to complain, he would sell them on the fact the tires aren't balanced correctly. That guy sucked. Story 65. When working at a call center for a company, if the customer I was talking to was rude, instead of being rude back or having to continue the call, I would refresh the call page and this would terminate the call. But the customer would receive there was a problem connecting your call, or the connection has been lost error message, and would not show as a hang-up from my end. Story 66. If you call into a Marriott hotel and say you are with a specific corporation, think Pepsi, GE, etc., you can get a deeply discounted rate for your stay, and you don't even have to prove you are an employee of the corporation. Story 67. That the Tower vodka sold at a large wine-more retailer is the exact same thing and produced by the exact same distillery as Tito's vodka. Same with the Summum vodka versus Grey Goose. Story 68. If you call customer service and there's no option to speak to a person, or the automated menu is taking forever, just dial 00. Usually takes you right to a real person. I found this works with most other companies too. It really is an IRL cheat code. Story 69. When I worked at a movie theater as a teenager, I found out that the medium popcorn is the exact same size as a large popcorn. One is a bag and one is bucket. If you dump the bag into the bucket is completely full. Just looks bigger. Story 70. I used to work for a bank. Said bank offered dead credits and, according to what you'd be using it for, charged a different interest rate. I believe 10 was the highest and 5 the lowest. When you applied for said credits, you had to state what you'd be using it for. There were 4 different categories, and you had to agree that if the bank requested proof of spending, you'd have to provide it. The bank never requested said proof. There was no inner workflow that led to that. I actually raised the issue a couple of times, but no one cared. It was just written in the TOS, but that was it. So basically, you could select the cheaper option and save a huge chunk on interest with no one ever coming after you. It's a shame they stopped offering personal credits. Apparently, they were not that profitable. I wonder why. Story 71. When I worked in the help desk, the manager would get a daily report on how many calls each person took and the average length of time for each call. I forget the specifics because it was quite a while ago, but say the goal was for each call to be 15 minutes at the most. Of course, that's not always possible, but ratings and reviews often were influenced by this arbitrary metric. So what I started doing, if I had a call that took 40 minutes to resolve, I would then call my extension 3 more times from my cell phone. Instead of 1 call for 40 minutes, I now had 4 calls that were 10 minutes each. That manager didn't last very long, but I did get a good review that year, as well as recognition in a company meeting for being one of the best help desk techs. Story 72. I have made an absurd amount of money during both Trump administrations. I'm a tariff and trade attorney. Story 73. Hitting check after the total when you're ringing people up. It pauses the timer that tracks your scans per hour. Also, instead of doing 10x something, pressing the repeat button instead for multiples. The 10x counts as 1, but each time you punch repeat, it counts as a scan. So doing these things will make your scans per hour's numbers go way up. I wasn't even a cashier at WM, but I had the highest IPHS PH. Story 74. SeaWorld San Diego does not take the license plates of the employees there. They have no way to tell who's a guest or not in the lot. You do not need anything special to make the gate open for the employee parking. Parking for non-employees is $25. Story 75. High school teacher. ASAP befriend the receptionist, the cleaner, and the librarian. Between them, they will solve all your problems and give you a heads up on staffing changes and fire drills. Story 76. Don't ask the manager for permission to do the thing. Ask the admin how to go about doing the thing. Story 77. Never ever accept the first offer, and never think that because you've been there longer, have a better title, or more responsibilities, that you make more than the people below you. And never, ever, ever go on salary if you are doing production work, unless they guarantee paid OT. Answer. Years ago, my base salary as an hourly employee worked out to $42,000 a year plus overtime. Some weeks there was a lot of overtime, some weeks none. They told me one day they needed to make payroll consistent for budgeting reasons, and told me they were putting me on salary at $48,000 a year. My first thought was, sweet, a $6,000 a year raise. Took me 6 months to realize that if they'd left me on hourly, I'd have made $55,000 that year. Story 78. Make yourself versatile and do regular work for 2 different teams that don't communicate between each other much. Then tell each one that you're working on stuff for the other one. You, of course, eventually have to do some actual work, but it's really useful for pushing back deadlines and giving yourself some space. Story 79. A lot of hotels won't let you cancel within 48 hours of your reservation without some kind of fee, if not charging you for the whole first night. What they don't charge for is moving the date of your reservation. So, just move your reservation ahead of the cancellation fee, and then you can cancel for free. Story 80. I work for a company that prepares people for specific industry licenses. There's a literal cheat code that highlights the correct answer on all the quizzes and exams, even the one that certifies you for your license. The code entry field is hidden behind a keystroke combo. We use it for quality control, but literally any user on the platform can enter it if they know the code and how to access the code entry field. Story 81. I used to work for the U.S. Army as a civilian overseas. They pay for you to live overseas, housing and basic utilities, plus the travel costs to and from, and ship up to 18K pounds of household goods. When my family moved from Europe, they paid 30 days of per diem, which included a ridiculous amount for food, which we hacked by taking our family to Paris for a weekend. Sorry, U.S. taxpayers, but it was allowed, and I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to let Uncle Sam treat us, on top of all the other benefits. Story 82. I don't work there, but I realize the plant czar at Lowe's just uses a Sharpie and marks through the barcode to put plants on clearance. It works at checkout. Story 83. If you hold down the key while clocking in, it will default back to the most recent even hour. Clocking in at 8:15, hold it down and it will show you clocking in at 8. Answer. Careful with this one, guys. One of my old companies used to have a system where that worked. Only it not only logged the clock in time, but the time the clock in time was entered, meaning it would show your 8 a.m. clock in having been done at 8:15. Someone I worked with found out the hard way they could see him punching in late almost every day. They tossed a giant report at him one day and subsequently fired him. Story 84. When I was 18 to 20, I worked at Bed Bath & Beyond. They could track if you were entering coupons in manually. They felt like if you did it too much, you were giving coupons away for free. Only supposed to do that if the coupon wouldn't scan. I found a cheat code around it by entering the first 5 numbers on a coupon, then 15 random numbers. It would come up, either 20 off and or 5 off 15. Still, to this day, for 20 off was 10110 and 16105 for 5 off. Never got caught giving out coupons to people who were just pleasant to me. Once I left, I showed a manager who was a friend, and he was dumbfounded I figured this out. Story 85. If you need hangers but have no money, go to a dry cleaners. They have stacks they'll often give you for free if you're polite and kindly ask. Story 86. Anyone will do almost anything they are told if it comes from someone in a high-vis vest. Well, in Britain they will anyway. Story 87. I managed a storage facility for a while. They send out price increases randomly 30 days in advance prior to the month due date. If you paid your bill just before the automatic increase kicked in, you can avoid an increase for basically ever until someone manually does it. Because they're legally required to mail them. And if your bill's already paid, the hike can't happen. Story 88. Been at my position for 4.5 years now. I was brought in to build up a new department. I was the first and only hire for the discipline. Someone else had fallen into it but had no training. They actually did a pretty good job at it. I use a bunch of industry programs on the down low that IT doesn't know about. It helps me get my work done faster and with a bit of magic because nobody knows exactly how I am doing it. I make 2.5 times higher now than the rate I was hired at because of it. I'm not telling anyone anything. Story 89. As a former customer representative for Dyson, if you want a free battery for your cordless vacuum, just call the hotline and say your vacuum blinking red light, and we will just give you a battery for free, even though it isn't covering in your warranty. Story 90. Half the problems get solved faster if you just ask the right coworker instead of following the process. Answer. This sometimes only works if you're also one of the right coworkers for something. Generally, anywhere I've worked, we've developed an internal list of people who get shoot done, and we're all willing to look the other way on process for each other, as long as it doesn't become a problem. Obviously, anywhere you need an audit trail for legal reasons, that doesn't apply, but as long as you do it for them, they'll generally be willing to skip the line for you. Story 91. This was over 15 years ago, but I worked clothing retail as a cashier. If you opened up a store credit card, you could get 10 off your purchase, and sometimes in August, there were tax-free weekends. Tax was about 8. However, cashiers could also provide 20 off at any time if a customer completed a survey and showed us proof. There was no limit to surveys completed, and I'd urge customers to do the surveys and, of course, mention my great customer service to save money. Few did, but people didn't realize they could save money with this tip versus credit card debt and busy crowds during tax-free weekends. Most importantly, cashiers didn't need a specific code to input. Survey was completed. They had their own discretion based off customer interaction. Story 92. As an interpreter, I just create a meeting only with myself on Teams and add subtitles. I still need to focus on the call, as the subtitles can be wrong, but it makes it 10x easier. Story 93. At a prior job, I had to travel to NYC for training over a 2-week period. I wanted to come home to spend the weekend with my family. Well, it turns out that a train ticket back home from NYC on Friday after class and another one going back to NYC on Sunday night was cheaper than 1 night in a hotel. Never mind 2 nights. Easy sell. And I got to see my family. And I got 2 more scenic train rides through the Hudson Valley, which I quite enjoy. Story 94. Baker here. Always bake a few extra of anything for other kitchen staff. And put extra aside for the pot washers and stock guys, because if you need something, they will usually take care of you first. Story 95. If you are looking a decent and clean bathroom while you are out and about, just pop into any hotel lobby. No one has ever questioned me. Story 96. I used to work in a factory. When production was failing test and we couldn't figure it out, we had to ask the engineers. They dislike having to help us out, so they would throw a bunch of questions at us that usually ended up with, how many bad? If you didn't know, they wouldn't do jack. So I started throwing out the number 37. My team knew when they heard that number it was a BS number to get them to do something. It always worked because it sounded specific enough to be true. Story 97. I've developed a bunch in my job. refining, but there's an attitude that if you aren't doing it the long and suffered out way, it's not the right way. Any talk of doing something other than the archaic way will quickly be shot down. It's true that shortcuts in general will usually lead to problems later on, especially in this industry. But when you're working with a process longer than the folks who invented it, you can find another solution to certain problems. It is, however, interesting as gender equality has increased, the harder manual tasks are suddenly being given reconsideration, which benefits everyone. Story 98. On the Warner Brothers lot, there is a cabin-like bathroom in the wooded area they rarely use for filming outdoor scenes. No one ever goes there. It's quiet, it's vented, it's in a small wooded area. Story 99. For pretty much any office job, if you just look incredibly frustrated, people will believe you're very busy and leave you alone. It's the Costanza way. Story 100. Are you going to a small local print shop and buying stickers or banners or flags? Ask to see their printers. These people love to show them off. If they don't show them to you, then they probably don't have them, and they're just acting as a middleman for a website you can go to yourself and save the $60 markup the local shop is charging you. You'll also get your stuff delivered to your house. Story 101. Lightly tap on the elephant seal weanlings' back flippers to get them to move forward. Steer them with a herding board. Story 102. I am not a morning person at all. I have to be at work at 7 a.m., which means I have to get up at 5 a.m., and I work 12-hour shifts. It's brutal, and I don't care how long I'll be able to keep it up, but so far it's been mostly manageable. Every morning I get breakfast, which I can order off an app. Some days there's this one cook, an older woman, who cooks really slowly. So I'll order my food and tell my coworkers I'm going to go get breakfast. Instead, what I'll do is walk over to this quiet room we have with a reclining chair in it, cut off all the lights, and take a 15 to 20-minute nap. Then go get my food, pretending that I was just waiting for that one cook to make it. Story 103. I once worked for a large cryptocurrency exchange in its startup phase. You know who made the most money? The dude who got his account liked as the referral account for the company accounts at other exchanges. Whenever the system needed to balance and made some 150K trade, he would get something like 0.25 referral credit. No one knew. He had the biggest curved monitor I have ever seen. Story 104. We work a 2-week on-to-woo week off schedule if you're cross-shift. Person working while you're off takes a week off and you cover. You get double time for a week. Then you take the second week of your shift off and they cover. They get double time for a week. Then they take the second week of their shift off and you cover. At say 3 weeks pay for 2 weeks perk. All totally within the contract, as long as you've got permission for the time off, which is always approved without question, as long as someone has agreed to cover it. Story 105. This is not my cheat code, but my friend's, who's a courier. He gets assigned a job and books his own travel and accommodation to wherever in the world he's being sent. He gets all expenses reimbursed, plus the airline miles he racks up are his to use as he wishes. A few times each year he cashes in those mileage points for free business class airfare and accommodation for both himself and spouse. They've done extended vacations in numerous countries for very little out of pocket. Story 106. I work at a hospital. Every single one of us knows which doctors and nurses to avoid as a patient and which ones to choose. We also know what time of day to go to the ER for the shortest wait. Story 107. Former Amish farmer. A goat can be very stubborn when it's milking time. They'll stand there, look you dead in the eye, and refuse to budge. Instead of wrestling with them, my secret is to grab a handful of hay and stand a baby goat or kid right next to me. Mama goats can't resist a good snack, but they also get real competitive once they see their friends, and especially their own kids getting a treat. They'll hustle right over and get in line to get milked. It saves a lot of time and a whole lot of fussing on a cold morning. Story 108. Instead of reading this thread, I'm gonna wait for the 7,000 TikToks instantly ruining whatever cheat codes are mentioned. Story 109. In hospitals or doctors' offices, if you know the specific code words or phrases, you can pretty much get all the care you need without worrying about doctors brushing you off. Trying to discharge someone too early? Say, I am not comfortable taking care of person in hospital if they are discharged today. Going to the ER and your stomach hurts? I have severe abdominal pain and can barely move. Specific phrases are understood and listened to and get the attention of medical professionals more than other things. And don't downplay things. We take you at your word and sometimes miss things or don't give enough pain meds if you downplay things. Story 110. As a bartender, I pretend to care about my customers, but all I care about is you ordering another drink and giving me a bigger tip. Story 111. As a former Taco Bell employee, if you order a classic stacker and upgrade the beef to chicken and add creamy jalapeno, you're pretty much getting a chicken quesadilla for half the price. Also, you can order just a side of chips and just a side of nacho cheese, and it will be less than half the price of chips and cheese. Story 112. If your gift card is expiring, there is no rule that says you can't buy a new gift card and pay with the old one. Story 113. Recently started working in medical post-billing, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to just ask for a discount. We can almost always give at least 10, but some discounts go up to 80 during certain promotions. And if you ask, we certainly want to give it to you, but we aren't allowed to offer it most often. Story 114. I used to work somewhere that was desperate for people to do overtime, so they were offering unlimited weekend shifts. In Australia, Sunday rates are 2x normal pay. So I'd work a 12-hour Sunday shift, pocket double time, then take unpaid study leave on Friday. It basically meant I shifted my weekend forward by a day, still had 2 days off in a row, and got paid way more than I would have on my normal roster. My manager never caught on. They just thought I was being a hard worker and a diligent student. Story 115. A good friend of mine is my boss. He hired me when I lost my job. Fast forward 3 months and we are running the place. With him being my boss, Friday afternoons we golf. Story 116. They sell ice cream once a month during the summer. They overbuy and all the leftovers are in the freezer the following day for free. Story 117. For my industry, not even just my workplace. One company makes a bunch of stuff for other suppliers. I figured it out when I ordered one supplier part and it came in another supplier box and part. So to save the $25 markup, just go to the OG supplier direct. We often will get quotes ordered because we can be very competitive in that line of items. At least once a week I get, your price is higher on these but way lower on these. So overall you guys are 15 lower. Story 118. When we have to overnight, Org will pay for your accommodation or give you like $150 night for it. You want to splurge on a spa chalet that's $500 night? Sure, but you only get $150 back. No receipt required. You just get reimbursed the nightly rate X no nights. And it's a daily expense of like $100. No receipt required. For staff who live between HQ and overnight location, so the commute is the same, but in the opposite direction. That's $250 night. No receipt required. To stay home. Story 119. Enterprise Services Company here. Essentially, we only sell to other companies. If you are a client pushing for a discount after hitting certain revenue tiers and the pricing is fairly opaque, e.g., you aren't buying off of a catalog, I guarantee that the pricing you get has the volume discount you negotiated accounted for in it. Story 120. I work in the corporate support entity of a company that owns grocery chains and work in an office building that houses corporate support and corporate for one of the chains. The 6th floor is the people who research new products to buy for the grocery store, and they always have cool samples. Story 121. At a movie theater, we had 30-gallon clear plastic bags we used to scoop out the popcorn at the end of the night. We didn't keep it overnight. If someone asked for it, and a staff member hadn't claimed it, we just give it to them. Otherwise, we trash it. With that same thing, we don't advertise it, but we sell those 30-gallon bags filled with popcorn for $35. Usually it's bought by companies or schools, but we'd sell it to anyone as long as you gave us an hour warning to make sure we had enough popcorn for movies too. Technically, you could buy a 30-gallon bag of popcorn for your movie for $35 if you called us ahead of time. Once the nearby college found out about it, we had a lot of students buy them for parties, events, or just to eat in their dorm. But it's not advertised anywhere. You'd only know about it if your friend worked at the theater or you heard someone talking about it. Story 122. Don't know if it still applies because I haven't worked or eaten there in 10 years. But at Applebee's, it was like $1.99 for a kid's mozzarella stick, 3 mozzarella sticks. A regular order or mozzarella sticks, 8 mozzarella sticks, was like $8.99. You could order 3 kids' mozzarella sticks for like $7 and get 9 mozzarella sticks instead of 8 for $9. Save yourself 2 and get an extra mozzarella stick. Story 123. If you act racist and show up tipsy, you can make upper management in no time. Source: I'm a politician. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vancher. See you soon.